Hey guys, this is probably the weirdest thing you've ever seen, but I made you a neuron out of pasta. So we're going to take a look at the action potential and what permeability has to do with it. Let's go over some anatomy before we start. This is our cell body. You can tell because it's round. Usually it would have dendrites spiking all over it, but I didn't bother with those. It has ligand-gated channels so that it can receive neurotransmitter. This is our axon. The linguini is the cell membrane, and it has these ion channels embedded inside of it. There's some ions inside and some different ions on the outside. So let's go over our pasta anatomy. Most important fact is that penne is potassium. Penne is potassium. That means that there's a lot of penne, potassium, on the inside of the cell. And there's some penne channels that would let potassium out if they were open. Our bow ties, these are sodium. Because of the sodium-potassium pump, there's more sodium on the outside of the cell. That also is going to make the outside positive compared to the inside. Now remember, our penne potassium still has a positive charge. It's just that the entire inside of our cell has a net negative charge. So let's talk about how an action potential begins, because right now we're at rest because of the work of the sodium-potassium pump. So let's get some neurotransmitter up in here. These are some serotonin almonds. When there are enough serotonin almonds on the outside of the cell body, it's really likely that some of them will bond to a ligand-gated ion channel. And that means that this channel is going to open and let in whatever ion it's permeable to, or let out an ion that it's permeable to. In this case, our channel is going to let in some positively charged sodium. Because serotonin has bound to its binding site, it's now open, and the sodium has passed through, bringing with it some positivity into the cell. If this positivity is strong enough, it can start an action potential by opening up voltage-gated ion channels. There are 2 ion channels and 2 steps to our action potential. First, we're going to get really positive, and then we're going to go back to negative before returning to normal. Let's talk about how changes in pasta permeability can make that happen. Once some positive charge from these ions that diffuse through the ligand-gated ion channel reach the membrane of the axon, this increase in positivity causes our first channel to open. Now remember, our bow ties are sodium and voltage-gated sodium channels, so the first channel that's going to open is our sodium channel. Now once it opens, these little bow ties are going to come inside of our cell because they're very concentrated on the outside. So let's put some sodium inside of our cell. With the sodium comes positivity. The inside of our cell is becoming more and more positive as the ions pass through the voltage-gated ion channel. This is where we are in our action potential right now. Now, after these sodium ions come in, they don't just sit there, they start to diffuse. They diffuse down our axon, bringing their positivity with them. That means that they might cause a neighboring sodium channel to open with their positivity, letting in even more sodium. This is why we're getting so positive so fast. So much sodium is flowing into our cell. Now there's a little bit of a lag, but this positivity has a second effect. The influx of positive sodium opens voltage-gated sodium channels quickly. It also opens voltage-gated potassium channels. So let's open these channels up. These are our penne potassium channels. Once they're open, penne can diffuse, and it's going to diffuse from high to low concentration. So let's diffuse our penne, our potassium penne, out of the cell. When penne leaves, so does some of this positive charge. what's happening now is the membrane is returning to its negative state. Right now, we peaked about here, and we're falling, and becoming more and more negative as more and more potassium leaves. Now, this does two things. Number one, it returns us to normal. Number two, it's going to cause these channels to close back up because remember, they're voltage gated. Whereas positive charge made them open, their own activity is going to cause the positive charge to leave the cell, making the inside negative, which is closing them off. So no more potassium is going to leave our cell. Now, right now we're here. Things are looking a little weird, and that's because our sodium-potassium pump hasn't had time to return things to normal. So let's briefly do one little sodium-potassium pump. Remember, it brings out 3 sodiums for every 2 potassiums. That was the action of our sodium-potassium pump, which will slowly bring our charge back down to normal. It's important that this happens, and it happens quickly, so that the neuron is ready to send one more wave of positivity from the cell body all the way down. Because when this wave of positivity reaches the end of our neuron, we're going to release some neurotransmitter ourselves, and the whole cycle will start again.